This is Steve Ridgel, and I want to tell you about Scott and Sarah and their coming home story. I first met them a couple of months ago, and then just a couple of Sundays ago, they stood up and had us read and tell this story. Life was hard for them. Growing up was tough, and they had a lot of things that just didn't go the way they wanted to, and a lot of the situations they found themselves in were because of other people's sin. But eventually, it was the result of a lot of their bad choices. They both ended up incarcerated, but while they were in prison, they found Jesus. They were both baptized. They got out of prison, got married because they wanted to honor God, not by living together, but by being married. But they kind of floundered around trying to find a community of faith, trying to find a place to live out their faith, somewhere they could do ministry and be ministered to. And in the middle of all this, they called a family friend who said, "You have a distant relative at Hillcrest." Her name was Pam. She happens to be one of our church administrators. But he said, check with Pam and Mike, but they go to Hillcrest, and I think that'd be a church that you could find a home at. And so they contacted Pam, and she visited with them, took them lunch. They talked. They showed up at church, sat with Pam and her husband Mike, and they said from the minute they walked into church, they felt welcomed and affirmed and supported. They said they clearly felt the presence of the Holy Spirit. They got really quickly involved in our Jesus Journey class, then in our Secrets class on Sunday morning. I enjoyed worship, loved what was going on, decided they wanted to be part of Hillcrest, but they didn't want to deceive their new church family. They wanted their new church family to know their story. And so they had us read their statement about life being hard, being incarcerated, finding Jesus there, coming out. And what they committed to, they said, we want the prayers of our church family so that we'll stay committed to our walk with Jesus. We want to be faithful. We want to be ministered to, but we also want to help and do ministry with you. It was very sweet when they came down there. Pam and Mike, of course, came up there with them, and we invited our elders and wives and people from our Jesus Journey class. We had a stage full of people. Read their statement. Of course, they got their round of applause from everybody for coming home and the courage that showed. And so I want to tell you what I learned from Scott and Sarah. I learned that God always wants us to come home. I was reminded how important it is for people to, when they come home, to let people know, not just to kind of slide in the door and act as if nothing, but to be honest enough to say, here's our story, here's our commitment, help us, we want to help you. That's a great thing that I learned. I love our church because our church is really who brought them home. And they were looking and they were interested. But when they saw what the Holy Spirit was doing and felt a church that welcomed them, it made all the difference. And so Scott and Sarah, I want to thank you for your commitment, for your story. I want to thank you for inspiring our church, and I want to thank you for the people that you helped decide to start their coming home journey. So Scott and Sarah, I look forward to many more years of ministry and seeing what you're going to do in the kingdom. I love you, and God bless you. This is Steve Ridgel, thanking God for bringing Scott and Sarah home.